Alrighty. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first County of Los Angeles Citizen Redistricting Commission special public meeting for 2021. Today is May 19th, 2021, and the time is 7:03 p.m. We will now call the meeting to order. As a reminder to the public, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed to youtube.com/LA County Redistricting. The link to the recording will also be posted and accessible through the Los Angeles County Redistricting website. If at any time any members of the public has any technical difficulties, please message me, Tai Lei, and we can work towards fixing the issue. As a reminder for members of the public interested in making a comment, please click on the Q&A button on the Zoom toolbar and enter into the Q&A section the following information. A, that you are interested in making a public comment. B, your name. C, the organization you are affiliated with, if any. And D, which agenda item you would like to make a public comment on. When you are called to make your public comment, you will be prompted to unmute your mic so you can speak. If you are participating via phone, press *9 to raise your hand. Once called upon, press *6 to unmute and speak. I will now take the roll. As a reminder, commissioner names will be called in a rotating alphabetical order by last name. Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Haile Soto. I believe Commissioner Haile Soto was on, but may have been kicked off. Commissioner Saira Soto.
Here.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
Here.
Commissioner John Vento.
Here.
Co-Chair Carolyn Williams.
Here.
Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Here.
Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Present.
Commissioner David Holtzman.
Present.
Co-Chair Daniel Maeda.
Present.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Present.
Commissioner Apollonia Morales.
Present.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Present.
And I see Commissioner Haile Soto, are you here with us?
Yes, I'm present. Sorry about that.
Thank you. I will now turn the agenda over to Co-Chair Williams.
Thank you, Ty. There are no changes to the agenda, and so the agenda is approved. Are there any public comments at this time?
Ty has already covered the procedures on how to make a public comment. There were two written public correspondences that Ty, your clerk, posted to the website for tonight's.
And at a special meeting, we don't have general public comment. We confine comment only to the agendized matters.
Okay. So we're moving to action item number 4A, oath of office for our newest commissioner.
We have Twyla Kerr from the Executive Office from Los Angeles County to do the overview of what the commission role is and do the swearing in oath of office for Mary Kenny to join you. She is the same individual who did the oath of office for the other 13 commissioners. I turn it over to Twyla Kerr.
Hello, everyone. So Commissioner Kenny, it's an honor to be here tonight to give you the oath of office. So can you please raise your hand and repeat after me? So I, and state your name.
I, Mary Kenny.
During such times.
During such times.
As I hold the office.
As I hold the office.
Of the Los Angeles County.
Of the Los Angeles County.
Citizens Redistricting Commission.
Citizens Redistricting Commission.
Solemnly swear or affirm.
Solemnly swear or affirm.
That I will support and defend.
That I will support and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
The Constitution of the State of California.
Against all enemies.
Against all enemies.
Foreign and domestic.
Foreign and domestic.
that I will bear truth, faith, and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California.
I take this obligation
I take this obligation
freely,
freely,
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well
and that I will well
and faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations, Commissioner Mary Kinney, on your appointment to the Los Angeles County Citizens Redistricting Commission.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Twyla Carr, and welcome Mary Kinney to the commission. Right now we want to continue our discussion and selection for the demographics and mapping consultant services bidder. As you know, last week we had two that we were considering. The National Demographic Corporation did withdraw its name from consideration. So tonight we'll continue our discussion, and we'll be discussing the application of and the proposal of ARCBridge Consulting and Training. But before we get started, Holly, we have a statement from you.
Oh, yes, I just did want to call people's attention to and mention Proposition 209, which was a voter initiative approved by state voters in 1996. It does prohibit discriminating or granting any advantage based on race, ethnicity, or gender in public contracting. So in terms of considering contracting with an agency such as the commission, the focus should be on qualifications and considerations other than race, ethnicity, or gender.
Okay.
So just keep that in mind as you move forward with tonight's agenda.
Thanks, Holly. And just a reminder, last week we had an opportunity to have a presentation from ARCBridge. They had we had a Q&A with them from the working group as well as from some of the commissioners. And so again, we're opening it up for discussion. And the way we'd like to do that is a round robin. We will have tie call on each commissioner. So each commissioner will have an opportunity to make a comment. And if you have no comment, just say no, and we'll do at least one round robin. And if necessary, we'll do two, and we'll see if there's a motion for us to consider.
Co-Chair Williams, do we first need to see if there's public comment on this matter?
Yeah. Thank you.
So very quickly, I do want to mention that we did not receive any public comments for item 4A. So currently this is item 4B. So the public comment period is open on item 4B. As a reminder for members of the public interested in making a comment, please click on the Q&A button on the Zoom toolbar and enter into the Q&A section the following information. A, that you are interested in making a public comment. B, your name. C, the organization you are affiliated with, if any. And D, which agenda item you would like to make a public comment on. When you are called to make your public comment, you will be prompted to unmute your mic so you can speak. So we currently do not have any public comments. So co-chairs, there are no additional public comments, so the public comments are closed on this particular agenda item.
Okay, so can we move to discussion then?
Of course.
Okay.
So just to reiterate, commissioners, I will now call on your name in rotating alphabetical order to ensure each commissioner has the opportunity to make a comment. If you do not wish to make a comment for this particular round of comments, please indicate so, and I will move on to the next commissioner. Please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Hylas Soto.
I'll just keep it brief. I did hear from the organization last week, and I thought both of the organizations were well qualified. So I think I'm ready. We're ready to proceed with the vote. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Saida Soto.
Not a comment as much as a question. Were we able to gather more information from ARCBridge about the qualifications of the team that they are expecting to bring on to support us?
I had reached out because the question was bench strength and demographics, and I had shared the demographics with the commissioners in terms of an overview. There are 10 staff. There's a mix. I can pull out the exact number of Southeast Asian, I believe 1 Latino of the 10, and 2 white. And it would be those 10 resources I gather that are available. And if you read the proposal, they indicated the specific talent they would assign. The president, Preeti Mathur, would be the lead program manager of the work being done.
Thank you, Gail.
No problem.
Thank you. Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
No comment.
Commissioner John Bento.
No comment.
Co-Chair Carolyn Williams.
I just want to also agree with Commissioner Soto, Jaime Soto, that the working group being both of the two groups that move forward in consideration as being equally qualified. And so I don't, other than that, I have no comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Yes, I concur with Commissioners Soto and Williams that both were well qualified, and I think we can move forward with a decision.
Thank you. Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Yes, I believe the organization is qualified. However, I have some concern regarding capacity. And also, it's unfortunate that they're not housed or located here in the state of California, or really have a foothold in understanding Los Angeles County and the communities of interest, particularly in District 2. So that is my concern, other than capacity, but they do have qualifications, and the lack of familiarity of the state of California and Los Angeles County. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner David Holtzman.
All right, so just first briefly to respond to some things that have already been said. The ad hoc working group on demography's ratings of the proposers were never intended to be final or dispositive. I don't think we can rely on those because we're not making them public as a reason to hire one person or another. We did have a public hearing later and a public meeting, sorry, when we considered this. And we heard from the candidates. And during that meeting, my estimation of National Demographics Corporation went up, and my estimation of ARCBridge went down, considerably down. But that's not my main concern here. Yeah, I don't think we would get as good service from ARCBridge as we would have from NDC, but that's not my main concern that I need to bring up tonight. Our proceedings so far have been very much inflected or infected with questions, comments, and considerations of race, sex, and national origin. We just heard from Holly, our counsel, that those considerations are prohibited as preferential or as factors in public contracting. The very fact that we just heard again some information about the demographics of the firm that's still here further contaminates these proceedings. So my position is that we need to start again with a new RFP. And I have several reasons for that. One is we need to have public acceptance of this commission's work. Hiring someone after the contentious procedure we had last time that turns out to have been in violation of the state constitution would not enhance public confidence in the commission's work. Two, hiring someone after last meeting with all the consideration of sex and race and national origin would put this commission at legal risk, would put our work at legal risk. I've asked Holly to clarify the situations when a Proposition 209 challenge might delay our work or even could possibly result in a court throwing out the map we ultimately come up with because of improper consideration of factors like that. It's important to have a fair procedure. And at this point, it hasn't been a fair procedure under state law. Another reason to stop this proceeding right now and have a new RFP, it would give us an opportunity to tighten up the RFP itself. I've been looking at it and I've found some inaccuracies. I'd love to be able to clarify the tasks, have less overlap with things we're expecting other personnel or other staff to do. I'd really like to be able to clarify how often we need physical presence from the demographic firm as part of our requirements. I'd like to quantify. I'd like to have a minimum in the RFP about the time and effort that the winning bidder will have to put into answering questions from the public. I think both presenters were concerned that that could overwhelm them, but I don't want them to be able to get away entirely necessarily without answering questions about the public, from the public. Now, I did ask Holly about the Proposition 209 problem. And I did, write back to her, and I did say some things like the point that I just made before, that the ad hoc demography group's ratings shouldn't be part of the process, and can't really be used, because we're not making it public even, to defend against an accusation of doing our hiring improperly, or just substantively making the choice for the wrong reasons. So also, the fact that NDC withdrew does not make it easier to hire the remaining firm. I think it makes it harder because of the likely reason that NDC withdrew. I think NDC withdrew because of the consideration of race, national origin, and sex in last week's proceedings. And those proceedings included commissioners asking impermissible questions, as well as making problematic comments that would taint any hiring related to the current RFP. And without all that, if we'd done it right, we might not have lost the opportunity to retain NDC. which is a highly qualified, well-known, reliable firm. If we simply select ARCBridge tonight, the selection would appear to be, and I think would be, very much affected by race, national origin, and gender. And given the prior proceedings, it would be laughable to assert that since there was only one remaining candidate, impermissible factors didn't affect the decision to accept that candidate's bid. So I think we should start again with a new RFP. I'm willing to help refine it. And in the meantime, I think we should get some training on proper procedure in government contracting, so we don't go off the rails like I think we did last meeting. So those are my thoughts.
If I may, I can share the ratings of, I believe it was 8 commissioners on the screening of the 3 proposals. It was just that it was identifying who would be finalists for the full commission to look at. I have those metrics available if people would like to look at them.
Again, they weren't intended to be final. They weren't intended to, and
Yeah,
people's, my rating would change now if I had to do it again.
Commissioner Mary Kenny.
I'd like to let you know that I did listen in on the last meeting, so I was able to hear both presentations. And it was clear to me that ARCBridge is capable of doing this work. The only comment I have is that I do agree with Commissioner Franklin that the fact that they are out of state or even out of county is a hurdle that they're going to have to overcome. I've worked with a lot of people in other parts of the country, and in my opinion, they have very little understanding of the diversity of ethnicities that we have here in Los Angeles. And I think all of the commissioners, it's apparent that the commissioners are very sensitive to that. And I think ARCBridge needs to make sure that they are also sensitive to the diversity that we have in Los Angeles County.
Thank you. Co-Chair Daniel Maeda.
The working group did a careful, detailed review of the proposal and found ARCBridge specifically to be highly qualified in all of the relevant areas. And those areas included ethics concern requirements that they have to meet the basic ethics standards that we've set forward. Redistricting, mapping, planning, public involvement in redistricting and mapping, review of public submitted maps, preparation of line drawings and ally counting. The proposer's proposed timeline to satisfy redistricting deadlines realistically, the proposer's firm and team capabilities, and the proposer's project costs and hourly rates. And the result of that among the working group folks, and that was a significant number or percentage of the commission, came out to have NDC and ARCBridge be clearly above the third applicant. And that is why the working group recommended that we bring both to the commission last Wednesday for presentations and consideration. The difference, in fact, between those two is less than 2%. And even though that isn't the basis for the ultimate decision, whatever it is that we make, I think it shows you just how close the working group felt that those proposals were prior to the presentations last Wednesday. After the proposals were received at our direction, Gala contacted a number of references that each of the applicants put forward, gathered a bunch of information, and held a series of meetings for the working group, those of us who could and wanted to attend, to hear from various references. And those included the Los Angeles County demographer, the head of ESRI, and all of the references praised ARCBridge as capable and qualified to do the job. The proposal, if you've looked at it, is extremely detailed, very comprehensive proposal. It is clear beyond doubt that ARCBridge knows the Esri system, the software. They've developed their own proprietary mapping, redistricting software that they've been using since the last census. And they've used it in multiple different settings. In their notable among their past work, and it's all discussed in the proposal, but just to highlight, they did redistricting type work for the San Diego Unified School District, mapping for Santa Barbara County, the cities of Baltimore and New Haven, Connecticut, the counties of Richmond, Georgia, Orange County, Florida, Jefferson County, which is near Denver, and Colorado. And then finally, they've done significant work with the Los Angeles County Fire Department that involved the entire county. 10 million people were within the scope of their work. They weren't limited to particular parts of the county. So admittedly, they're not local. There's nothing we could do to change that. They're not from Los Angeles, but they do have experience in working with Los Angeles County and neighboring counties that we have in Southern California. They do know about the demographics of the Southern California area. And many of their projects have involved substantial populations of racial and ethnic minorities. And they recognize, if you read the proposal, that is going to be a big part of what they have to do to look at those kinds of things with the help of the voting rights consultant, assuming we hire one, to grapple with those issues and help us draw maps that are going to sustain or withstand voting rights scrutiny. To me, it's very clear. It was very clear, and it was clarified further last Wednesday that we have a candidate who can do the job, and I think we should take this opportunity to contract with them at this point.
Thank you. Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Thank you. Questions, comments? I was prepared to make last meeting are moot now, given the fact that NDC has withdrawn itself from consideration. I share some of the same concerns that Commissioner Franklin and Commissioner Holtzman have pointed out, and including Commissioner Kinney. The not having a good sense of the lay of the land in vernacular, I think could be somewhat problematic. As I understand it, there's one employee that's not full-time. I think it's a consultant. He or she's a consultant out of Marina Del Rey, and the ARCBridge calls that an office. Okay, fine. But we don't want to get something back that's going to be a little bit sterile. I understand that they can do the job, and I don't dispute that, but can they do it well? Are we going to get what we need in the final product? And I would like to, I want to make sure I understand, if Holly can repeat in a second what it is that she said. I heard it, I understood it. Commissioner Holtzman referenced it. It's legal in nature. I'd like to hear that again in the citation. And then also a question to the co-chairs. If we were to, and I'm not one to prolong decisions and making decisions and keeping things moving, but if we were to go a different direction, as Commissioner Holtzman suggested, can we do that and still be on schedule, as it were, to get done what we need to? Or are we at a point where we have no float to do that?
Why don't
Well,
we have Holly read that, and I think Gayla can answer the question about our schedule.
Thank you.
Okay.
right. Prop 209 was a voter initiative that amended the California Constitution to prohibit considering or discriminating or granting any preference in public contracting, among other things, based on race, ethnicity, or gender. And to be clear, I am not opining as we sit here today that is a problem for the commission now. I just want the commission to be aware of it and have that in mind going forward.
Thank you.
Regarding the schedule, as you know, my first and foremost concern is that you get a demographer that you have confidence and you believe will help meet the needs of LA County in this redistricting effort. I know there was some question about why the working group initially put forth 2 recommended firms, and the reason was it's such an important factor and the ratings were very close that you all as a commission should decide who you want as your demographer. NDC withdrew, you're down to 1 bid. If you were to go out for a bid again, I think we would try an accelerated process. It would be fine if Commissioner Holtzman and other members of the work group wanted to refine the proposal some. I do know that we had a number of firms that could not bid who were highly qualified to do this work, but they had a conflict of interest. National leaders, but they had either done work for the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. So it was very important to the working group and obviously to your restrictions in terms of the Senate bill that we find firms that would be nonpartisan, would be neutral, and did not have conflicts of interest of the last 10 years. That said, it becomes a very small pool of demographers out there. We could certainly go out. I would probably ask for a more expedited process in terms of quick turnaround and responses. We could have special meetings for you to look at the finalists and reconsider it. I would encourage you, if you do not go forward with ARCBridge and you decide to go back out, that we try to get you demographer by July 1. This process takes about a month because that's when you're going to begin to have the software coming out, the various data sets and all of that. We thought by having a demographer on board by the end of May, it would enable them to be involved and listen in on the various public hearings to understand, again, the communities of interest in our diverse county. But it's really up to you as a commission, however you want to proceed. Does that answer your question, Commissioner Mendoza?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Apolonio Morales.
Yes, thank you. So I'll just say 2 things. That I don't want to repeat what everybody else has said, but these are top qualified candidates bids that were presented to us. I just want to remind us that that was the case. There was a whole ad hoc working group that brought this to our attention. If there was a scoring that was made and decisions made around that, that's what we got. And so we're basing off of that, that particular process. So I want to make sure we understand that these are highly qualified people in terms of ARCBridge. Secondly, we were supposed to get a report back from Holly on NDC. And so it's a moot point now, right? But, that would have been an opportunity to answer some questions that we had surrounding, controversy, some of the questions that we had raised earlier. And last point I'll say is that it's not against the law to ask questions. It's not against the law to know certain things. And so, Proposition 209 is Proposition 209, and we adhere to the law. That's not the issue of the question at hand. So I just want to make sure we understand the difference in trying to get more information, right, in this process, as opposed to trying to undermine or using that as a way to take people out from the process of getting the bid at the end of the day. So I'm going to move to support ARCBridge. I don't think we should be delaying this any longer.
Thank you. Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Yeah, hello, everybody. I got like just 5 sentences that came to my mind. First off, NDC's withdrawal was surprising. Second, I might agree that NDC has too much influence, which could be not good, let's say. Settling for ARC seems premature. Then again, ARCBridge's lack of SoCal expertise might be good, because that puts the expertise upon us as commissioners of LA County to decipher that what should be important. So I would like to see if we could maybe get another bid, but if settling for ARC might be good, because it would enable us to actually maybe use the information that's provided in a more platonic way and impel us to try to make the lines as fair as possible with our local expertise. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura.
Thank you. I have just 2 points that I want to mention. The first is that I'm concerned that any mention that we have violated laws only creates distrust in our own processes that we have so worked hard on to remain transparent. The second point that I want to make is regarding the locality of ARCBridge. I do want to be sensitive to the concerns that they are out of state. But we do have an outreach ad hoc group that has multiple connections in the community. So I think as part of that ad hoc outreach working group, I think we could be of help. And we have numerous community organizations that continuously participate in our meetings that could provide any information that is necessary should there be any gaps. That's all.
Thank you. Co-Chair Williams and Co-Chair Maeda, we have finished the first round of comments. Would you like to begin the second round of comments?
Yeah, let's go forward for the second round. Thank you.
So as a reminder, I will be calling the commissioner's name, alphabetical by last name, starting with Commissioner Haile Soto. If you do not have a comment for this round of comments, please indicate so and I will move on. Commissioner Haile Soto.
I'd like just to reiterate that, again, both firms were highly qualified, and I have no issue proceeding. And just on a side note, I know a lot of the discussion has been on Prop 209. I'm very familiar with Prop 209, as I was probably one of the first classes for that affected maybe my university admission. Whether I'm not saying it was bad or good, but I am very familiar with Prop 209 on it. But other than that, I think ARCBridge is a good firm and ready to proceed with the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Saira Soto.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you to Commissioner Orpanella Segura for, I think, bringing forth that as a working group, as an community outreach working group. I think we can be of great value added, but also I think keeping in mind that the knowledge and the expertise on our communities is going to come from the field or from the community, right? And so it's the job of any firm we hire, if they're qualified to interpret and understand and listen, that I think they, that they can move us forward. And so I think at this point, I do have some concerns about going back out to search for additional proposals, given the time constraints we have, but also all the other, just all the other work we have to do to be prepared for the public hearings. And that I do think ARCBridge is qualified.
Thank you. Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
Thank you. Had I known there was going to be a controversy, I might have spoken the first round. And I hope the procedure is that after this round, there will be a motion that we can vote on. The two things I want to add, not repeating anyone else. First, I read all the proposals and I thought the ARCBridge proposal was strong. I listened to the interviews with the final two candidates and I thought the ARCBridge team was qualified. The thing that impressed me most about them and that changed my mind during last meeting's exchange about who I would have voted for was their software and their proposal to work interactively with us. As data came in, and maps came in, they proposed to analyze them and give us feedback, and to do that repeatedly in real time, which I thought was better communication than the firm that was located nearby. More of it on a more rapid basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner John Vento.
So one thing I just wanted to share with you is any company that we hire, they have to draw the map according to us. I think sometimes last week, there was some miscommunication as if one of these companies was just going to draw the maps themselves. And I think both firms made it very clear that you are our clients and we will draw the maps accordingly. And one thing that was convincing for me is when Gayla said that she had talked to the people from ERC, I think that's what it's called, and both of them had, pleasant things to say. It wasn't like they had, it wasn't like a water and oil, relationship here. So here's the one thing that last week's meeting left a bitter taste on me is just kind of the way it kind of went out with that person that was commenting and accusing NDC of being racist. I didn't think that was appropriate. And that really, I don't know how to explain this to you, but that really bothered me. Just that kind of dampened the way the meeting went. And I didn't think it was fair to them to be on this receiving end of it. And it did not surprise me that they withdrew the next day when I saw that in the email. So with that, I feel, are we going to spend another month? Do we have another month? That's the challenge that I'm struggling with. I'm just letting you know that, to go back out. And we spoke to, and I say we, yesterday, Gayla and Dan and Mark and I were on a call with Matt Barreto from UCLA. And again, he has a firm, but he couldn't do it because he didn't meet the qualifications that we have. And so it's a very, like when I started looking at this, it narrows it down to who we can actually get. So that makes it really difficult in terms of the pool. So I just wanted to share that and let that go.
Thank you. Co-Chair Williams.
I guess I don't want to repeat what was said, but I also read the proposals and looked at all three groups that were involved and agreed that ARCBridge was qualified. And I think what concerns me is when we first started, Gayla was very diligent and doing a wide, net, put out a broad net to see who was available, who was qualified. She used a lot of different networks to make sure people were aware that we had this RFP, and we still only got 3. And I'm not saying, that we, and I'm also saying I'm agreeing with John, Commissioner Vento, that we can do this again, but I'm not sure if it's gonna prove any more satisfying from what we have. I think ARCBridge is qualified, and I think there are times when we need to move on because there are a lot of things in front of us, and we've got other working groups like the outreach to help us as we move forward. And I don't want to discount the work of the demography work group for what they did in reviewing the proposals and looking at and also verifying the references and all the work that Gayla's done. So I think that we can move forward on this.
Thank you. Commissioner Wong.
Yes, I want to thank this great discussion. I think people made excellent points, both ways, but I guess I'm swayed by some of the points that had to do with the issues, because I have some concerns about delaying this decision. And we do have, and initially, actually, I had concerns about ARCBridge since they were out of the state. But I think after listening, last week to the proposal, I think that they have a good handle and it's not going to be a problem. And the point that Commissioner Orpanela Segura said about our outreach group, I think we're able to do that. And Commissioner Vento, that it is our decision that, that we are the experts, and others have said we are the experts. We know our community, LA County, the best. And so, and then I do want to just address this issue about Prop 209. I do not think we have in any way jeopardized any of our discussions of decision-making around around this bidding process, because any of the comments that referred to, I guess, race and gender came from the public. And that at any rate, I'm not worried about that. As I can't remember, one of the other commissioners said we're just gathering information. I feel that we didn't make any decisions based on that. So I feel that ARCBridge's proposal is strong. I feel very comfortable with them. I read all the proposals. I was in a lot of those meetings with the references with Esri and the demographer, LA County demographer. So I feel very comfortable in moving forward, because I'm also concerned about a delay in decision making. And I do worry that we won't really be getting very many more proposals, even if we did open it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Franklin?
No further comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Holtzman?
Well, I have a bunch of things to say. I don't really know what order to say them in, but I think I'll start with what I'm planning on concluding with. And that is to let you know that I'm still open to hiring ARCBridge after an unquestionable procedure, if we can't find anyone better in such a procedure. The main function I feel I perform here for the commission is trying to help our process not run into snags, etc. Giving my take on what the law says. And I also want to say that I understand why sex and race and national origin were on our minds and on our lips at the last meeting. It should be noted that it wasn't just the public who said they were evaluating the candidates based on those characteristics. Those comments about that came from us, from commissioners ourselves. I asked why ARCBridge kept referring to itself as a woman-owned business when it's not actually certified that way in LA County. But I understand why these things were on our mind. These things were on our mind, and I don't blame anybody for bringing them up. We hadn't been trained to avoid them. These things were on our mind because we're actually supposed to consider demographic characteristics when we constitute the commission, when we choose new members of the commission, and we actually had the choice of a new member of the commission on our agenda. We've been considering demographic characteristics of the electorate, of the population, and of ourselves as things we're supposed to do. And we ran up against something we weren't supposed to do, and we did it. I understand that. I'm not saying anybody is at fault here. Again, I'm trying to help. Asking questions like we did and making comments like we did somebody said that asking questions can't violate Proposition 209, but asking questions can be evidence of improper considerations in the ultimate decision. Asking improper questions can be evidence of improper consideration. Asking and the comments we made. I just want it to be a clean process. I don't want us to get sued. You know, I'm following a lot of other commissions, a bunch of other commissions for this commission as part of our working group. A bunch of other commissions are facing litigation. People are paying much more attention to other commissions than they're paying so far to our commission. We've had like no press attention. So far, we're under the radar. But this is the sort of thing that can really, you know, blow up on us. So I want to make sure we do it right. Let's see. Oh yeah. To those who think that these are the options we have, and we have to work with whatever we got back from this RFP. I want you to know that there's no need ever to go with the first round of submissions to an RFP. Now, I should tell you again, following other commissions, the San Diego County Independent Commission is right now on its second round of going out to the public with the RFP for a demographic consultant. The San Diego County Commission has the services of a professional procurement staff from the county that handled the receiving and rating the proposals. We did that work ourselves. Again, we got to think back to Ray Sunshine, and maybe some of this we should you know, let professional staff do. The professional staff in San Diego found all of the proposals not to be sufficient. If there were any proposals, the San Diego Commission, the professional staff, the way they did it, they wouldn't even tell the commission how many non-approved proposals they'd gotten. They wouldn't tell the commission that. They have pretty tight rules on all that. And the San Diego Commission has now, I think, upped the amount of resources they're willing to spend on a demographic consultant, and it's likely because they've raised the ante to get some more proposals, maybe better ones. So again, there's no obligation to go with what we have right now. We might be able to get better if we recirculate, so to speak, if we go. So, and about the demographic working groups review, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I'm a member of that working group. People are saying our review was really careful. I will tell you, my review was not really careful. My review was rushed so I could fill in the whatever it's called, SurveyMonkey rating form on time. It was based on just a quick read through of each proposal. I thought I found a couple of absences, but I wasn't too concerned about it because those ratings weren't going to be final, weren't going to decide the matter. They did, you know, help us cut one proposal, which in retrospect maybe we shouldn't have done. You know, as to ARCBridge, I find that their capacity seems to be very limited. You may have noticed that a public comment today, the public commenter on this item today, said that if we hire ARCBridge, ARCBridge is going to need some hand-holding to be able to have the opportunity to succeed here. And that hand-holding, again, represents work that we shouldn't have to do. That Ray Sunshine would say, whoever we hire should be able to do for us without us having to hold their hands. So the fact that they have their own proprietary software and they kept referring to it, I think is a negative, because if we can't make the software we have available to the public, we'll be violating our mandate. Anyway, let's see, what else do I want to say? All right, so to me, ARCBridge may have looked good on paper, but they were not that impressive in person when they came to present. And I had some problems with their answers to some questions. But again, and to conclude, I'm still open to hiring them after a unquestionable procedure. And, if we don't find anyone better. So that's my second round of comments. I look forward to Co-Chair Maeda, Professor Maeda's response to my legal concerns.
Thank you. Commissioner Kenny.
No further comments.
Thank you. Co-Chair Daniel Maeda.
Thank you. So I did promise I would respond to Commissioner Holtzman's comments. I don't believe we are under any legal risk if we proceed at this point with hiring ARCBridge. I think it's clear there is sufficient basis in the record to demonstrate its qualifications, its ability to do the job, et cetera. Last Wednesday, there were public comments made that we had to grapple with as a commission because we were hearing them. We had one written comment, but we also had some public comments we were hearing for the first time. They were completely one-sided, as you know. Each of them raised serious concerns about one particular candidate, NDC. One was admittedly a totally inappropriate personal attack on one of the NDC's principals, and we gave that person an opportunity to respond, which I'm glad we did. But other comments were critical of NDC's past work, their experiences, their representation of cities and boards where they had to defend those cities and boards against voting rights lawsuits arising out of maps that they drew. That's an important consideration that it doesn't violate 209 to consider. I raised a question last Wednesday whether there would be a credibility problem where it is known and undoubtedly would have been parroted back to us by the press or by our public interest organizations which follow us closely, whether there's a credibility problem, the fact that NDC's principal testified as an expert witness for the North Carolina Republican Party in a very controversial partisan gerrymandering. That wasn't an attack based on race. That was an attack, not an attack, but that was a question or at least a discussion point I wanted to make about whether NDC was perceived to be partisan or in some way unfavorable to voting rights type concerns. And I wanted to hear what the answer was, and I wasn't satisfied with the response. It's clear that we have those kinds of issues that we need to be aware of and to consider when we're making our choices. I was concerned about whether that firm's experience and positions in the past, et cetera, would enable us to fully defend against voting rights lawsuits, attacks, and issues that we were protecting incumbents. Those are some very serious concerns that I had. And finally, what I'm saying is I think there were ample reasons why we may have voted against NDC, far and apart from race, gender issues. Finally, let me just say that I would urge the commission not to try to rebid this RFP. Commissioner Holtzman says we need a professional to go out and try to, get bids or to process bids or whatever. Gala did so much to try to get bids for this demographic RFP. Not only constant emails, but phone calls and follow-ups and talk to people who said they were going to do it and then they didn't, so she followed up on them. It was like pulling teeth to get these 3 proposals. If we rebid, highly, highly unlikely the NDC is going to come back. I think we probably will lose ARCBridge. So notwithstanding Commissioner Holtzman saying that, he's willing to consider hiring ARCBridge again, they may forget about us. we are in a position now, they're the most qualified and only remaining candidate. And if we don't proceed with them, I'm not sure that they will be back. Don't kid yourself to think that we will get a lot of better candidates. It's possible, I suppose, for maybe somebody didn't apply because it was inconvenient timing for them or whatever. But a lot of ones that we knew were qualified or we suspected would be qualified did not apply because of our ethical standards or guidelines. So I think we have a candidate before us who's eminently qualified and we should proceed to vote them up. Thank you.
Co-Chair Maeda, if I also may add, we also posted this RFP and the next RFP for voter polarization analysis on the county-wide bidders list that goes out to thousands and thousands of bidders, just FYI. I believe the clerk should continue with the comments for second round before hand raising occurs.
Thank you. Commissioner Mendoza.
Thank you. Commissioner Obregon says something that's resonated with me, and that is that ARCBridge not being local may require we as commissioners to be more involved in the process. It's paraphrasing. And initially I thought that could be good. And then after hearing Commissioner Holtzman now, I'm wondering, well, are we going to be doing the job that we're paying a consultant to do? I think everybody will do what's necessary to get the job done as commissioners. I have some concerns about having community groups, big concerns about having community groups augment, or as was stated, fill the gaps of the work that ARCBridge is doing, because they're not local, don't, as I call it, know the lay of the land as well. So I don't think that's a good course of action. But those are my last thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Apolonio Morales.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think I'm ready to move forward on taking a vote. I don't see, getting ARCBridge to move forward and help us out in this effort as being in any way negative. So I think they're qualified. I think they're fully qualified. I think we need to recognize that. I think they have the experience and they have the team that's able to do this. And so, I think that's where I stand right now. It's like, I don't think we should delay this process. I think these folks are very fully capable of doing what it is that we're asking them to do. The second point I'll make is, like, we should not try to shy away from issues of race and gender ever on this commission. We have to be mindful, right? Just as we have, discussions around the demographics, that these issues are going to come up. And if we're not talking about them, then the community will definitely be talking about them. So I think we just, we should not shy away from that. And we should expect that that's going to be part of the conversation. That's all I'll say.
Thank you. Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
I guess just going back to what I had said, ARCBridge's lack of exposure in Southern California should be maybe an asset, because they might not have those preconceived ideas, and that can kind of allow us to listen to the community and take what we know and then what we're going to receive, and for us to guide ARCBridge in our endeavors in what we would like to see. So I think it's might be a good thing, and I think moving on with ARCBridge is probably good, and then it enables us to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Priscilla Orpinella Segura.
I'm confident in our processes by, what we did to send out the bid, and in our collective review of the 2 firms that submitted. So I'm ready to move forward with the decision.
Thank you. Co-Chair Williams, Co-Chair Maeda, we've finished the second round of comments. How would you like to proceed?
I've heard several times that we're ready to move forward with the motion. Is there a motion?
We do have a hand up from Commissioner Holtzman.
Okay. I see we have two hands. Okay.
Just briefly, I wanted to correct a couple things I heard Chair Maeda say. First of all, NDC was not representing the Republican Party in North Carolina. They were representing the Republican-controlled legislature, which is a subtle but important difference. And also, I wasn't saying that we need a professional to go out and get bids for us. You know, the distribution list we have was very good. What I was saying was that San Diego was lucky to have a professional stop to receive and evaluate those bids, and that they thought that if they were to increase the amount of money involved in the RFP, in other words, raise the amount they're willing to pay, they thought that might get them some more bids. And then, I got to say, I'm not so happy that we gave Doug Johnson the 30 seconds to reply. I think to that bad comment. I think it would have been better for all of us if he didn't take the bait. But sorry, Chair Maeda, that's my opinion.
Okay. Are there any other hands up? No, I don't see any. So are we ready for a motion? Is there a motion?
Commissioner Stetcher.
Yes, I move that we hire ARCBridge. We award the contract for our demographer to ARCBridge.
Second?
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and second that we hire ARCBridge.
Who seconded for my notes?
Oh, that was Commissioner Wong.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, or is there any discussion? Okay, so Ty, can we do a roll call on the vote?
Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. I will now take roll call. Commissioner Saida Soto?
Yes.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher?
Yes.
Commissioner John Vento?
Yes.
Co-Chair Carolyn Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Dorina Wong?
Yes.
Commissioner Jean Franklin?
No.
Commissioner David Holtzman?
No.
Commissioner Mary Kenny?
Yes.
Co-Chair Daniel Maeda?
Yes.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza?
Aye.
Commissioner Apolonio Morales?
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson Obrega?
Yes.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura?
Yes.
Commissioner Hyla Soto?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, thank you. So Gayla will take the next steps from there. Okay, so we're ready to move on to looking at the discussion and selection for voter polarization analysis bidder. We only had one bid that was from the Maroon Society. So I'm going to hand it over to Gayla to talk a little bit more about the process and to introduce the panel who's here. They will provide a presentation, 10 minutes. We'll have 20 minutes questions from the commissioners, specifically those on the working group, and then we'll move from there, I think, public comments. So Gayla?
So I have their names up here while Ty elevates them to panelists so they can do their presentation. As Co-Chair Williams pointed out, we only received one bid for the voter polarization analysis. Therefore, even though all of the working group members received the proposal, the agreement was if there's one proposal, it would then be presented to the entire commission, which you are going to discuss tonight. We're going to use the same format in terms of giving them 10 minutes to give a presentation. All three of them are here, and they are a local firm the Maroon Society. Aaron is based here, and Dr. Carrie Brown and Dr. Ronald Brown are out of Michigan. So they are in a slightly later time zone right now as they present to you. So once they're available, they'll do their 10-minute presentation. I will hold up a time's up sign, not to tell them to cut it off at that moment, but to wrap it up. The commissioners on the working group have a series of questions that they will ask them that will take about 20 minutes. And then we'll open it up for public comment. And then we'll do a similar round robin discussion in terms of your impressions of what you heard. Oh, you can also have a period where you can ask them some questions. Then we'll do the round robin. Commissioner Vento's hand is up.
Yes, can I just make a comment? Yes, Commissioner Dorina Wong, that would be great if you wanted to do questions 5 and 6, and then the last one, okay? I saw your email.
Okay, so you're gonna split those up?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so Ty, are they ready to come forward? If so, I will take my screen down. We're not adjourned, sorry. I just went to the end of the presentation.
Yes, all three have been promoted to panelists and should have share screen privileges.
Okay, so welcome Maroon Society.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Thank you.
Yes?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
So good evening.
By the way, Aaron, can you turn on your video so we can see you as well?
That would help, right?
Thank you.
Perfect. Good evening. It's been a pleasure to participate in the last 2 meetings that you all have conducted. It's been, as a sociologist and someone that follows politics, very, very informative, and I think a really healthy example of democracy. So thank you for the introduction, Gayla. We are going to present today on the voter polarization analysis for Los Angeles County Citizens Redistricting Commission. And we note that this is the first and very historic time in which the commission has been formed to do this really important work to ensure that everyone's vote gets counted and that democracy is protected. So what is redistricting? What's the purpose of this study? So redistricting really is, the goal is to develop maps that are legally defensible and compliant with the intent and spirit of the US Constitution and California Constitution to promote and ensure representative democracy with one person, one vote. The Los Angeles County Citizens Redistricting Commission is mandated to redistrict Los Angeles County supervisorial districts by meeting the following criteria. 1, ensuring the populations are equal in all of the 5 districts, avoiding diluting votes of racial minorities, creating at least 5 supervisor districts, and observing California elections codes. And what's the objective of our analysis? Well, the objective is to analyze voter patterns and demographic shifts in LA County to inform the redistricting of supervisor districts. And the 4 tasks that the commission has identified includes analyzing LA County voting results and related data from prior elections, analyzing whether, where, and when there was racially polarized voting in the county, analyze whether and where there is voting cohesion among communities of interest, and presenting the assessment of strength and persistence of racially polarized voting. And so a little bit more background on this. The Voting Rights Act is really what is the legal foundation for doing this work. In particular, Section 2 prohibits any practice or procedure, including redistricting, that results in the dilution of minority voting strength. Vote dilution analysis is conducted to ensure a proposed redistricting plan, which is what you all have been discussing for the past few weeks, the Voting Rights Act, i.e. diluting the strength of minority votes. And so just a little bit about racial polarization, the legal fundamentals of it. This 3-pronged test includes the racial minority group comprises a majority in a specific region, that there's voter cohesion among the racial minority group, and that the white majority votes as a bloc to defeat the minority's preferred candidate. And those are the 3 prongs that the Supreme Court uses to determine if racially polarized voting has occurred. This, as you know, is a map of the supervisor districts, the supervisorial districts as of 2010. And I'm going to talk about the data that we're going to be looking at or analyzing to conduct this, this study. First, we're going to look at the race and ethnicity of voting age citizens by precinct for the most recent data. We have available the American Community Survey for 2019, and if possible, the 2020 census may be available, but based on the timeline of the project, it's unlikely that the census data will be available in time to meet the deadlines that have been set for this study. The second data that we'll look at are votes cast by race and ethnicity by precinct from the period of 2011 to present. And we will be analyzing data from the general and primary elections. Again, these are the 5 supervisor districts as of 2010. And so what we did for the presentation is we did some preliminary analysis looking at the 3 largest racial minority groups in Los Angeles County. And that includes African Americans, Latinos, and Asians broadly. And so what we wanted to do is understand and look at where are people living. And as we see from this map, we see that the darker color, these are census tracts, by the way, the darker colored regions are higher concentrations, where 81 to 100%, for example, of African Americans. And this map shows that the majority of African Americans, where they would make up the majority, are concentrated in Holly Mitchell's district, or Supervisor District 2. And they're not really concentrated around the borders or the current borders between any of the 5 supervisor districts. However, it changes a little bit when we look at the Latinx or Latina community in LA County, as well as Asian community. As we can see from this map, this is all of the county, but there is a large concentration, or the largest concentration of the Latino or Latinx community is in Supervisor District 1, and many of the lines are drawn cutting into some of these communities. And so this doesn't mean that voter polarization is occurring, but it's an area that we would want to look at. Now, when we look at the Asian community or Asian residents, there's more of a question about the existence of possible voter polarization. As we can see when we do a close-up, we see that many of the current districts bisect the communities that have the largest concentration of Asian residents. And so this doesn't mean that voter polarization exists, but it would meet the first prong, where there is minority groups making up a large majority in a region. And then we will have to look at voter cohesion as well as voting patterns to determine if racially polarized voting exists. So just to talk a little bit about our approach to the analysis, we're going to look at the first, second, and third prongs. Again, as I've mentioned, we're going to identify precincts within supervisor districts with minority groups that are sufficiently large and geographically compact to constitute a majority. Second, among those areas within the supervisor districts, we're going to explore the existence of political cohesion among precincts identified above. Again, that includes voting patterns that we will look at to see if they're voting in a similar or cohesive manner. And then third, we're going to assess the frequency that white majority vote defeated minority votes preferred candidates by precinct. And that will determine the extent to which voter polarization exists, those 3 prongs. Just a little bit about Maroon Society. We are a local Southern California, Los Angeles-based Black-owned business. We're a certified small business enterprise, minority-owned business enterprise, and DBE. Our clients include the City of Los Angeles, DWP, the City of West Hollywood, City of Santa Monica, Southern California Association of Governments, Los Angeles World Airports, which is also known as LAX, LA Safe, LA County Department of Mental Health, as well as a variety of other agencies. We have been in business since 2005, and we are currently in our 16th year of business in Southern California. I'm going to talk a little bit about the 3 members of the team in order of seniority. We have Dr. Ronald Brown. He is an esteemed member of the National Politics Study, which he developed. It's one of the largest surveys on voter attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. He is also a professor of political science at Wayne State University. And he teaches courses on redistricting, African-American politics, political parties, elections, and public and American polling. We have Dr. Gahari Brown, who has over 15 years of experience conducting studies on race, religion, and politics. This includes factors that drive voting decisions. Dr. Brown's recent book, which he co-authored with Dr. Ronald Brown, as well as James Jackson, Dr. James Jackson, explores the racial voter polarization, including the mediating role that exposure to civil rights, human rights, and social equity or equality sermons have on voting intentions and behaviors. And then there is me. I'm Aaron Celius. I'm the Director of Research and Strategy for Maroon Society, and I will serve as the project manager, the primary contact for the study. I've conducted over 60 studies with a focus on public safety, public health, and equity, and these studies are primarily conducted in Los Angeles County for a variety of our local municipalities. And I think that's the time that we have to present, and we're happy to field any questions you may have.
So Aaron, I would suggest maybe you take your slides down so that you can see the full commission. And the first question is going to be from Commissioner Wong.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Celius. That was very helpful. I just have a few questions around the objectives and tasks, that you went over and that's in your proposal. So first, kind of a more general question. What do you see as the greatest challenges in performing, this polarization tasks, that you've just gone over?
Typically in studies like this, the greatest challenge is access to the data in a timely fashion. In the years of conducting research, we've never come up against an analytic question that has befuddled us, but it's typically how accessible the data is and how clean it is, meaning are we able to get it in a timely fashion, and what do we need to do to clean it in order to make it available to analyze with the software that we use.
Great. Okay. So, you went over talking about the voting patterns of the different racial and ethnic groups. So what is your experience working with voting patterns of different racial ethnic groups? I know you went over the Black and Latin, looking at the demographics, but in terms of the voting patterns, what's your experience, not only working with the larger minority populations like the Black and Latinx and maybe even the Asian groups, but what about the smaller populations, maybe Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders, or even Native Americans or American Indians?
Sure. So I'll answer part of that question, and then I'll let some of my colleagues respond to the second part. In terms of the work we've done with diverse populations, we're in our 16th year here in Los Angeles, where we were founded, and we conduct all of our business. We have conducted in the past 7 years over 100,000 surveys, over 100 focus groups, and 200 one-on-one interviews across the spectrum of Los Angeles County. This includes all of the communities that you mentioned, including linguistically diverse. We've conducted, an example would be the Promotores de Salud Mental study that we did for the Department of Mental Health, looking at the Latina community, specifically women, and how we can address stigma and the barriers that Latinas face in acquiring or having access to mental health resources and the informal networks that includes. In addition to the team that you see in front of us, our team also includes Patricia Ortega, who is Native American, and we reflect so in addition to the research work, we've also done outreach. We are the company that was selected as the prime contractor to roll out the TAP card, which is the card that is used by Metro across the entire system. And so in that work, that was over a year of outreach. So in that capacity, we educated the public on how to use the technology to load their fares and ride the train. And that included making outreach to over 750,000 LA County residents across every imaginable race and ethnic group and language. And I think I'll turn it over to Drs. Kahari Brown and Ronald Brown to discuss the variety of racial and ethnic groups that have been addressed in the political research that our team has done.
Sure. As Dr. Celia stated, I'm a sociology professor at Wayne State University in Detroit, where I do research on race, religion, and politics. I'm also currently a consultant with the Pew Research Center. Now, for the past 17 years, I've collected, analyzed, and archived data on political attitudes, behaviors, including voting and vote choice of Americans of diverse racial and ethnic backgrounds. And these data include information on for whom individuals plan to vote and for whom they actually voted. These data that we use are, I think, particularly helpful in allowing us to tell a more complete story of the role that race and ethnicity plays, because we do have data on not only the Asian American group, but Chinese American, East Indian American, Japanese American, and Filipino American, that allows us to look at the impact of race and ethnicity on party ID, voting, and vote choice. We've analyzed this data ourselves, and we've also archived it for researchers around the country to also use and examine it.
Just as a follow-up to that, when you're looking at the voting, the race and ethnicity of those groups, how do you determine, it's hard to determine it sometimes. It's not as if they...
Yeah, Kahari, I'll respond and then you...
Go ahead.
One way that I've done it, I'm Ronald Brown, and I teach at Wayne State in Detroit, and I'm gonna try to answer both parts of your questions. In the national surveys, the first national survey that I was involved in was just among African Americans, and that was back in 1984. But since then, I've been involved with a national team that have examined African Americans, Africans in USA, Caribbean Americans, and Asian Americans. And what we've done what we did was to do different sampling techniques to try to get at various populations across the country. So we varied our sampling techniques to do that. And also because of the cost of surveys, we moved from face-to-face to telephone surveys to now internet surveys. And so that we try to confront this idea of how to gauge the different populations by taking into account the difficulty of reaching, our populations that live in different parts of the country. Secondly, in terms of this question of polarization, we start almost all of our surveys with questions about their voting preferences and their party ID. So, at the beginning of all these surveys, we're very much concerned about the individual in terms of his or her or their sense of voting, how hard it is, how difficult it is, and the degree to which their voting itself is a reflection of their ethnic identity or the partisan identity. And we do that by asking in our national surveys we've done a series of questions about partisanship and about the ethnic identity. So that's how we've done it in our national surveys that we've done. So we take into account in terms of trying to reach various populations, using various sampling techniques to try to reach populations, and also, when necessary, put different weights on our data.
Okay, thank you. And just another related question is about, showing voter cohesion among maybe groups of minority voters, like if they make up a multi-ethnic voting bloc. Have you had experience trying to identify those kinds of voter cohesion data?
Yes, we have. The data that Dr. Brown, the other Dr. Brown mentioned, the way that we identify individuals of different ethnic groups is we ask them, how do you self-identify? And by asking individuals how they self-identify, we can examine similarities and differences in party identification, strength of partisanship, the degree to whether they voted at all, and whom they voted for. So in that regard, we absolutely can, and we've done that in the past. So in terms of the multi-ethnic survey that we've led, this survey has been in the field for 17 years, since 2004, and we just finished the 2020-21 version of the survey.
Okay, thank you. And just one last quick question. You know, do you have experience showing the voter cohesion among communities of interest? That's, you know, not race or ethnic based.
Well, what we're doing right now is that we have census tract data that we're now using to match up the individual respondent and also with the census tract. So we're going to actually start doing them. We've done preliminary analysis and we haven't published that yet, but we are overlaying now our survey data with census level data, and to get at that idea of ethnic cohesion and the possibility of polarization.
Can I follow up? Did that address the question of voters of interest? Because that was a question that we had during the proposal process, and the response was that the selected bidder would be given information about what constitutes a voter of interest. And so as soon as we get that information, we could be more responsive to that question.
Okay, that's fair. I guess, you know, and I assume that maybe you would use a similar survey process that you use for ethnic groups and racial groups. But I'm going to go on because there's other commissioners who have other questions. So I'm going to turn it over. I think, am I turning it over to Commissioner Vento?
Commissioner Vento would be next, yes.
Yes. Okay. So thank you so much, gentlemen. And I just have some questions for you in regards to kind of what we're talking about. As you know, that this can lead to, our decisions can lead to lawsuits and stuff like this, specifically on ethnicity and race. Can you walk us through your understanding of the court's ruling in Gingles versus Thornburg?
Our understanding of the court's ruling?
Mm-hmm.
We have PhDs, so we are not attorneys, and we understand that the county has an attorney on staff to provide legal analysis. Having said that, the three prongs that were identified in that ruling include identifying a racial minority group that makes up or comprises a majority. First prong. Second prong, that they are vote cohesively, and the third prong is that there is a white majority that can come in to block them. And, you know, we would not be equipped to go further beyond understanding this, as we are not attorneys, but we are research experts, and we have a great amount of experience conducting analysis.
And I think also we are familiar also with the Department of Justice and their Shelby versus Holder decision making, and realizing that Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, you know, still holds. So we're familiar with the Department of Justice and their interpretation, not much of the case that you mentioned, but of the Shelby versus Holder case. I mean, that I think we are familiar with that.
Right, and I appreciate this, and the reason why I'm just asking is this is what leads into these lawsuits with these redistricting commissions, and that leads into the next question. And you've kind of overlapped this, but I was wondering if you could take another stab at this. How might you apply the Jingles test, specifically conditions 1 and 2? So, I mean, you kind of mentioned that, but this is a key part of understanding what leads to a lawsuit in these districting commissions. So how would you apply that so that we might, as a commission, be able to defend this?
Sure. So the way we propose applying that is it would be very similar to the presentation that we gave, where we look at the voting districts. We looked at census tract data as that was the most readily available data. If the county has access to precinct level data, we would love to look at that. But we will look at the data at the level that's most granular, the smallest level, and we will determine, one, is the first prong met? Are there a sufficient number of racial minorities in that specific region that constitute a majority? That would be prong one. Among that set, that data set of the variety of voter precincts or whatever that geographic area is, we would then go to prong two and look at the voting patterns over the past decade to determine, are they voting cohesively? And then if yes to that, it's really very mathematical. If it's yes to that, then we go to the third prong and identify the extent to which there's been a white majority blocking their vote for a specific candidate or candidates.
Right.
We would also draw inferences about what might happen hypothetically if we drew the district A versus B versus C in terms of what we might expect when it comes to turnout. So with the data that we have, we have the capability of doing simulations to say that if you do it this way, this is how we think the turnout might look. And it's not so, and we based upon the prior voting pattern. So I think that's what we would do to avoid making an inference that looks as if we're trying to draw lines to help particular parties or ethnic groups. So I think for us, our concern is to ensure that what you receive from us would be that our results will give you some indication of the type of interest that citizens from different groups will continue to have in the democracy. I think that's our line. We're not partisan, and we're not basing our analysis on our racial or ethnic identity. It's more about, in terms of, if we look at the maps from prior voting, if you change it in this simulation, this is what you get. So for us, it's more doing this idea of our civic obligations to give you the best possible information in terms of how you think the lines should be drawn. I mean, that's what we're going to do.
Right. And I appreciate your response. And the reason why I'm just asking this is because we've done some background research on this particular, what leads to some lawsuits in this particular area. And so this is what my next question asking is what I'm leading up to. Have you ever been called a witness to testify regarding Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of '65? Have you guys ever been called to be a witness in that?
No, I have not.
I have not.
No.
I have not.
I have not.
Okay.
No.
All right. And then finally, I think, Aaron, you mentioned precinct data. Precinct data is very, very key to this. As you know, Los Angeles County has 5,000 precincts. Have you done describe any research with precinct data in Los Angeles County or any other county that you have done?
So precinct level data is it's part of the data that we typically look at for most of our studies. Now the studies at the precinct level, that hasn't necessarily been the question for many of our clients. We regularly do GIS or Geographic Information Systems analysis. And so the level at which the client needs the data, that's what we obtain. So there's nothing unique about precinct level data versus census tract data versus census block data. It's just, to what extent are we able to get all of the most comprehensive data to tell the story or conduct the analysis that we need. At the precinct level, it's going to, our concern within the Roon site team is that we're not going to be able to have the level of available data at the precinct level for race and ethnicity. And so when we were in touch with the Census Bureau over the past few weeks, it has been challenging to get the response that says, yes, we can provide you that data for LA County. We have been able to obtain the data that we would need at the census tract level, but we would love to be in conversation with the demographic group at the county to determine if they have access to a greater level of data. So to your question, the data is not, the precinct level just determines the granularity or the specificity or the smallness of the region. It doesn't really modify the analysis or the way in which we treat the data. And we have been doing that for decades.
Okay. And one last question.
I think you have one more, and then we have Commissioner Stetcher, and then we'll open it up. Okay.
Yes. We would like this work to be completed by the end of July. So can we have this input prior to our review of submitted maps? Is this timeline reasonable for you? I mean, I'm just being realistic here. I know we're all juggling.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the timeline is reasonable, provided that we're able to agree on the data sets that we're going to use, which, we outlined in the proposal as part of the kickoff, where we would say, these are the data sets that we have access to. Do you have access to different data? I know, I believe the name is Ty is on this call as well, who I believe is sort of the head of data for the commission. And so we look forward to having a conversation with him and any other, person that may have access to the data. It's really just a conversation about what data is available and how can we make the best use of the availability of data within the time frame. But to your answer, to your question, yes, we will be able to fulfill the requirements of getting the analysis before the end of July.
Thank you.
Just a point of clarification, the county is prepared to provide the voter registration voting precinct data for the last 10 years. It can go back further. So we did introduce to those folks. We have one more person from the working group who has a question, and then we have questions from the floor. And let's first wrap up the working group questions, and then I'll have to check if we take questions from the public before we open it up to the commissioners. I think we can take it from the commission, but go ahead, Commissioner Stetcher. You have the last round of questions, I believe.
Thank you. I'm new to polarization analyses, and I read your proposal and listened to the talk, and I still don't understand exactly what specific statistical analyses you'll do and what information you'll present to us. Can you clarify what it will look like, this analysis of racially polarized voting? What will we get?
Yes, I believe that Dr. Kahari Brown is
Sure.
going to.
Sure. What we'll do is we'll report the percentage of each precinct that voted for each candidate. We'll also report the racial and ethnic demographics of each precinct. At the bivariate level, we'll report correlations between race of precinct and vote choice. We'll also present cross-tabulation analysis of the relationship between the majority race of each district with their vote choice. And at the multivariate level, we'll report the probability of a precinct supporting a candidate by majority race of precinct while accounting for relevant precinct level demographic characteristics like education, income, poverty, immigration, gender, etc. And finally, what we will do is report the percentage of the time in which the vote choice of racial minority precincts win and lose district-wide elections by year. And then based upon those analyses, we'll make recommendations of district level lines.
And so with that, in addition to, as if I may add, is that
Sure.
we will be able to, from that analysis and from the information that we report, we will be able to say the extent to which racial polarization occurred over the past decade in these particular areas or these particular geographic regions. And just going back to the presentation, the regions that are especially important to note are the ones that are closest to the existing lines or the lines that may be modified throughout this redistricting process. Those are the areas that you really want to be careful about redistricting, to say, in these areas, there's voter polarization. Maybe there's reason to move this segment of the county from district 1 to 2, or 3 to 4, that type of thing.
Thank you. The proposal mentions 3 or 4 other studies, but none of them are really analysis of polarized voting per se. Have you done other projects that are comparable to what we're asking you to do?
Well, we mentioned earlier our work on the National Politics Study, which is a national multi-ethnic study we've done since 2004. That study has census level data. It doesn't get as low as the precinct level data, but at the census level, what we find, the work we've done with that data set indicates that the racial demographics of a census tract, well, really, for Asian Americans, the racial ethnic demographics of the census tracts in which they're located does impact their vote choice, and it does impact the degree to which they vote. So it's interesting what we find. Again, this is data on previous elections, but what we found using this data is that 85% of Asian Americans living in census tracts that were more than 3/4 Asian voted for Democratic candidate John Kerry in 2004, compared to 60% of Asian Americans living in census tracts with fewer Asian Americans. But we also found as well in this data that for Asian Americans, it was only work for Asian Americans, but that being in census tracts with more Asian Americans also correlated with the degree to whether or not they voted, period at all. So this is not LA County data, this is national data, this is not precinct data, this is census data, but we do, I mean, this is the type of work that we do. And so yes, we have experience doing this type of analysis and work.
Thank you, that was very helpful.
Yeah.
And we're also familiar with the literature. I mean, there's some recent literature about race and polarization that shows exactly what Dr. Brown just stated in terms of if you look at over time what's going on, is that particularly for African Americans and Asian Americans, it matters in terms of who's running for office, who's actually seeking office. And so it's the seeking of office that appears to influence, the vote choices of Asian Americans and African Americans, less so for the Latinx community. So that while we didn't report it in a proposal, we are familiar with the literature, and we will also have that as part of the final that we funded. We have that as also part of the literature that we have in our final product. So we will cite the literature.
Commissioner Stetcher, we have one more person in the working group who had a question that they had wanted to put forth. It's Commissioner Holtzman. And then I'd like us to go on and open it up to the other commissioners.
Okay.
Commissioner Holtzman?
Thank you, Gayla. Your presentation showed a lot of maps of the existing districts. So two questions. My first question is about that. How would your presentation or proposal change if we tell you that we're supposed to be independent of the Board of Supervisors and may very well want to proceed with a blank slate without the current districts as a starting, without the current district map as a starting point or something that carries much or any weight at all? How might your presentation or proposal change if you knew that?
It would not change very much. The maps that we provided are more for your benefit to see the manner in which we would be advising and conducting the analysis. For us, the current lines are irrelevant because the analysis that we're going to do is supposed to be informative and instructive on areas that, if you kept the same, are cutting through existing racial minority communities and maybe areas in which voter polarization is occurring. So it wouldn't really change the manner in which we conducted our proposal. It's really for your benefit.
Okay.
If you change the map, we would be speaking to that map too.
Fair enough. But finally, your presentation kept showing things, and you'd say, well, that doesn't show whether or not there's voter polarization. My question then to you is, what does or would show voter polarization?
So sure. So the maps that we showed were really just to really speak to the first prong that Commissioner Bento was asking questions about primarily. And so that first prong is is there a geographic region where there is a concentration of a racial minority group that makes up the majority? And so those maps are really just showing the areas across the county's 5 supervisorial districts where racial minorities do make up the majority. And so that included for African Americans, they're geographically located in Supervisor District 2, whereas Latinos and Asians have representation in more than just one district. And so we showed that specifically to highlight this is the starting point of any voter polarization analysis, meeting that first prong. Is there a racial minority group concentrated with a large enough majority to make up the majority where there's a possibility of them being blocked? And so what I may not have communicated clearly is that in Los Angeles County, there are really only 3 racial minority groups that make up a large enough percent of the population or proportion of the population for voter polarization to even exist. And that includes African Americans, Asian Americans, and the Latinx community.
I think that is our time frame for the formal questions from the working group. Co-chair Williams and co-chair Maeda, I might suggest that we give the other commissioners an opportunity to ask questions, and maybe Ty could call on those who are not in the working group to ask questions, and then we can wrap it up with the Maroon Society, receive public comment, and then you can have your round robin discussions on your observations and whether or not there's a motion. Would that work for both of the co-chairs?
It sounds appropriate to me.
Yeah, it works. Okay.
So Ty, can you keep track, or I can help you?
So it doesn't look like any commissioners have there. Oh, Commissioner Kenny. Commissioner Kenny, you are muted.
Sorry, I have 2 questions. The first one is, you speak a lot about prior voting patterns. For our purposes, are you talking about prior voting patterns for supervisor?
So it really wasn't very clearly defined in the RFP. As we understand it, we are going to be looking at both primary and general elections for the past decade, which would include elections for candidates well beyond just the supervisors for each of the 5 districts.
Well, my understanding is that you're assisting us in complying with the Voting Rights Act. And so the question would be, what does the Voting Rights Act, what kind of analysis does the Voting Rights Act require? Do you know the answer to that, or do we need to get legal direction for you?
I'm not certain that I understand the question as it's phrased. Is there? I'm not. I would like to respond. I'm just not sure how to respond. When you say, "Do I understand the analysis that's be conducted?" We understand the analysis that was requested in the RFP. We also understand the analysis that is used by the Supreme Court to determine if voter polarization has occurred. Beyond that, I'm not certain of the question that you're asking.
Okay, so I guess we might need to get legal clarification as to the scope of your review of past elections in order to comply with the voting rights, or what the courts would require.
Possibly.
Okay.
Mary, can I help you? Can I just add to your question? Is that possible?
Of course.
Okay. Aaron, do you understand? I mean, I'm assuming this is general, but do you understand packing and cracking?
That's not a term I'm familiar with.
Okay. All right.
Cracking, I mean, my understanding, cracking is that you intentionally divide a district from Black, Latinx, or Asian, and you crack it, you break it to ensure that population, so that you decrease the probability of that population electing someone as either Republican or Democrat. And so you crack it, so you break the power of that group. You can pack a district so that in the past they may have had 2, now they only have 1.
So the intent is to help a party to win an election. So what you're doing, you're diluting. The intent is to intentionally dilute the power of a racial minority group.
Yeah. So then, are you? Excuse me. Are you through, Commissioner Vento?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So my second question is, my understanding is that the analysis is that there has to be enough minorities present to constitute a majority of a proposed district. Well, the districts that we have are 2 million people. And I may not have a complete understanding of the requirements of the Voting Rights Act, but that's a pretty high threshold that you would have enough minorities present in a particular geographic area of Los Angeles County to elect a supervisor.
Sure. So the way and I agree with what you're saying, and that's why the proposed analysis is at the precinct level, if the data is available at the precinct level, to provide the race and ethnicity of community members, and or at the next largest level. And so absolutely, it would, our understanding of what the intention of redistricting is to determine what lines make the most sense when carving up the county into 5 districts with a relatively equal number of people, and to be mindful of the geography, political attitudes, cohesion, and obviously racial minority communities, and making sure that their vote is not being diluted by the manner in which these lines are drawn.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Are there any other questions from the commissioners? Ty, I do not see any other hands up. Do you see any hands up?
I do not see any other hands up.
Why don't we receive public comment? And we could probably ask the Maroon Society. I want to thank you for your time, your presentation, but there are no further questions at this time, so you can return to the attendees.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So currently public comment is open on item 4C, and there are currently no public comments. I'll give it a moment just in case any attendees would like to make a comment. Again, just as a reminder for members of the public interested in making a comment, please click on the Q&A button on the Zoom toolbar and enter into the Q&A section that you are interested in making a public comment. Include also your name, the organization you are affiliated with, and that you would like to make a comment on this particular agenda item, item 4C.
While we're waiting to see if there's any public comment, I'm going to ask the commissioners to think about what observations you may want to make, and we are going to do 2 rounds of the round robin again. So each of you have an opportunity to share your thoughts, your observations, and then we'll see if there's consensus for a motion.
So there are no public comments. So public comments are closed on this agenda item.
So I think it goes back to Co-Chair Williams. Is it all right if we begin the round robin?
I believe Co-Chair Williams may be frozen.
Okay. Why don't you proceed with the round robin? And we can probably go off of the spotlight image. Unless the commissioners like the spotlight image.
Would anybody like to take a 5-minute break before we get into the 2 rounds?
Co-Chair Maeda, would you like to have a 5-minute break?
I would not like to have a 5-minute break, actually.
Okay.
If people need to step away quickly, we can come back to you. Right there.
Great. So commissioners, I will now call on your name in rotating alphabetical order to ensure each commissioner has the opportunity to make a comment. If you do not wish to make a comment for this round of comments, please indicate so, and I will move on to the next commissioner. Please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
I'm torn at this point. It was not at all clear to me that they could convey what kind of product they would give to us to help us decide whether a particular district was better or worse than another one. There was some conversation at the end in response to the question I asked that made me feel a little better about the specifics of the analyses, but I'm still on the fence.
Thank you. Commissioner John Vento.
Yes. So a couple of things I just wanted to share. I'm not comfortable voting on them tonight. And I'll just kind of give you a little background. In doing some research of voter polarization, when we pick the demographics, they're the drawers. But this map, this report that they're going to produce is going to guide us and will be used in a lawsuit if we are sued. And one of the biggest areas that gets sued in these areas is Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And what they do is they bring in experts to show voter polarization. And it took me a while to wrap my head around what voter polarization is. And let me give you an example, everyone. If most of you know, in the last redistricting in 2010, they packed Gloria Molina's district is what they did. And that's what created this problem, which ultimately, obviously was going to lead to a lawsuit. But so so I have reservations going with them. And because of this importance of understanding the Voting Rights Act and this voter polarization, this is such an important piece of guidance for us, because we got to look at the precinct data, and so there's some stuff about learning out how groups vote, and those are very, very key things that we're going to be scrutinized on. And so that's just how I feel at this point. And Commissioner Kenny, Mary Kenny, I am so sorry for interrupting you on your question. I got so excited when you were talking about the legal thing, that's why I wanted to ask the question. So I apologize for adding on to your question. I just wanted to let you know that. It was just that terms like packing and cracking, if you're not familiar with them, this is where commissions or previous redistricting commissions have gotten in trouble, where they are going to pack voters in. And this has been a big concern of the Hispanic vote in Los Angeles County and just in general. And I'm just showing you this from kind of some past research. And that's why some other people have cited that court case, Garza versus Los Angeles County, having spent some more time looking at that. And just the history of redistricting is so controversial in LA County that I really feel like we need someone who is an expert in this area that understands voter polarization and can help give us the correct guidance when these maps are drawn. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Co-Chair Williams.
Okay, thank you. My Wi-Fi got disconnected. I'm not sure what happened. Listening to part of what Commissioner Vento, I was a little concerned when you said, do you understand packing and cracking? It just seems like, even though someone did, one part of the group, one person in the group did define it, I was a little bit concerned about it. So I think they have a certain level of experience. I'm a little concerned if they bring enough experience to do what we need right now. I just have a general concern.
Thank you. Commissioner Wong.
Yes, thank you. I'm not so happy with their responses to my questions. I don't think I got responses that I expected. It wasn't too clear to me when they were responding to my questions about their experience with voter polarization, and also how they would show voting patterns. And they suggested that the main way they would do it was through surveys, and I'm not sure if that is the best or only way to do it. So I would like to have a little more time to kind of research a little bit more about how to voter polarization analysis should be conducted and what the results should show. Because I'm not sure, it was not clear to me how they would actually do the analysis and what data they would collect, which is pretty key and fundamental. And I don't know if they didn't understand my questions or not. So I would also like a little more time to think about this to see if they're the right. And I don't know if any other firm would be better at explaining it. But at this point, I guess I don't feel quite comfortable moving forward with them.
Thank you. Commissioner Franklin?
Yes, thank you. Well, the Maroon, is it the Maroon Foundation? The name?
Maroon Society.
Maroon Society. Okay. They were the only organization that answered the RFP, correct? Now, the working group that reviewed the applicants that answered, did the working group rate the Maroon Society? If you rated them, did you rate them qualified, or did you not rate them and submit them to the commissioners just to hear their responses? I don't know. That's my question. And the third one concern is,
Franklin,
if
I could just
yes,
do the first one. The working group had agreed that if there were multiple bidders, they would review them all and they would rate them. They also had agreed if only one is submitted, it would go before the full commission.
okay, so they were not rated on whether they were qualified.
No.
Correct?
The proposal was not rated by the working group.
Okay, so that's my confusion, because I'm thinking that if they're before us and making a presentation, then they have been deemed to be qualified. So I see that they were not rated. So if we don't move forward, then we're in the same position that we found ourselves in with ARC group. We proceeded because we didn't want to belabor the time, because we needed to get things rolling. So I'm sure, Gayla, you did the same thing that you did before. You really researched, you really put the word out there, you looked and you made contacts, made telephone calls. And so from all of that, we got one response. So would this be would this be similar if we open it back up again to see if we can get more response? That's my question.
So let me weigh in on this. My understanding from some of the academicians who might have bid on this is they are unable or do not have the insurance requirements and some of the other contractual requirements that Los Angeles County has imposed that our subcontractors have. You know, they're faculty, they use their graduate students, they do this kind of work. So this kind of proposal is normally open for some of that firms that do government bidding are more capable to bid on. Another option you all could consider, and this is not a large dollar amount in terms of this study, is to approach academicians about doing the work. There are experts out there, but as I said, either the ones I talked to were either busy or they said, we don't have the capacity to even bid on something like this, if that makes sense. What we could do is build in added costs for them to get the insurance. The most important one is errors and omission, which is to protect you as a commission and the county, and obviously as a contractual obligation our firm has as well.
Okay, so thank you for answering the question.
Thank you. Commissioner Holtzman.
What I think is important.
By the way,
Oh,
can I add one other thing to Commissioner Franklin's? It was also very much a similar issue that a lot of the groups that do this kind of analysis did not meet the conflict of interest. Oftentimes they are brought in when there's litigation and they will represent one side or the other. So that's the other reason why a number of the firms who thought they would bid and university institutions thought they might bid later did not bid. Sorry, Commissioner Holtzman, but I just wanted to add that little tidbit.
oh yeah, and Executive Director Hartzell, I was one who thought maybe this group was disqualified because they'd worked for the city, the office of the city attorney and the office of the mayor. We checked into that, and the mayor and the city attorney really don't know them. They were at a lower level, so we decided that they're okay that way. I was going to say what's really most important for us to keep in mind here is we are not asking them to do Voting Rights Act compliance analysis. We're asking them to do voter polarization analysis or racially polarized voting analysis, which is part of complying with the Voting Rights Act. But we really don't need them to go down all the prongs. So I'm fine, they don't totally get all the prongs. But what they don't seem to get is what would constitute voter polarization, how they would show it. And I kind of wish that they and had watched, maybe Mary Kenny, Commissioner Kenny, you should watch it too. Justin Levitt's presentation to us about Voting Rights Act and particularly the voter polarization analysis part of that. Because really all voter polarization is we're looking for a correlation between, percent race and percent vote for particular candidates. And it's a big scatter plot, and you do some sort of regression and you say it's here or it's not. And then maybe you do the same thing for some geographic regions, but I don't know, I don't think it's that complicated. So even though they don't get it, I'd be fine with going with them because they have done all sorts of varied analyses and they seem to pick up what needs to be done pretty fast. Their lead, I think I saw this described somewhere as like an applied sociologist or something like that. And then but then the survey research that comes out of the state of Michigan, I don't know specifically about Wayne State or whatever, has been particularly good. So, I'm willing to take a risk with them because I think we can educate them pretty fast. That said, if the sentiment of the group here is maybe we should reissue the RFP, I could go along with that too. So right now, those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Commissioner Kenny.
I don't really have any strong comments about it. I am concerned that clearly they can give us any kind of sociological analysis of the county that we might want, but I'm just concerned that they're not focused on the issues that we're asking them to focus on. I think it's actually pretty narrowly focused, but I may be misinformed.
Thank you. Co-chair Maeda.
So I think Commissioner Kenny's previous, one of the questions that she had for them was, can they use surveys of just who people voted for president, or do they need to actually have surveys for who people voted for the last time they voted for supervisor? I think that my impression is that was at least one of the issues she was raising, which they didn't grapple with. So I'm strongly with this one because I do think, as Commissioner Holtzman seems to think, that these guys have done, they're obviously very bright and accomplished in the various areas of voter analysis, right? And it was heartened to hear that they understand Asian Americans are not monolithic, et cetera. But getting at the core things that we need to get at, the voter polarization issue, I don't go into this feeling like, okay, yeah, they definitely get it and are really going to help us. At the same time, perhaps Commissioner Holtzman is right that if we, and Commissioner Kenny, if we can direct them in a particular way, then we can probably get the results we need. I don't want to say we reject this proposal, but if there's a feeling like maybe we can see who else is out there, and if there's something else that we should consider, maybe we should. I'm definitely torn about it because I'm not sure who else we're going to get given our guidelines and the timing and all that. But so I'm just not sure what to do at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mendoza.
Thank you. I share a lot of the concerns that the commissioners have raised to this point. This work is clearly very, very specialized. I'm troubled that we're getting one proposal. Question that I ask myself is, do I think these highly intelligent, highly educated people can do the work? Yes. Have they done the work? I think it's unclear, at least to me, exactly what it is that we need and want and expect. But could that be managed? Quite possibly. And to hear that insurance limits may be the reason why it is that we haven't received another bid or two or three is a grave concern. Maybe there should be special dispensation. This isn't a huge project, so to have a vendor or a contractor, consultant, have to spend a lot of money to do this work, maybe that should be looked at more closely in their qualifications and requirements, because apparently, from what I understand, given what Gayla said, is that it's a county requirement. I don't know if there'll be some relief there or not, but I wasn't part and parcel of the RFP. If it's a county process, maybe that needs to be looked in so that we might be able to have somebody that actually specializes in this, has done it, is not conflicted, and we know exactly they can actually help us, educate us, as opposed to us directing what it is that we want. So that's where I am, and I also understand that we have to continue to make progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Morales.
Yeah, I feel kind of the same way. I won't repeat a lot of what's already been said, but definitely the experience, the intelligence that's required of this is there. But I think it is a question of, are we focusing exactly? So my sense of this, if we're not getting a lot of bids, it's either like, yeah, there is a liability question, but it's also like the liability question, right? The fact that if this does go to court, that somebody has to go up there and provide testimony in terms of what went on and what happened. So I do feel that this is an important consideration in that regard, because we have to be able to point to something to say, this is why we felt this was the case, and that's why the line was moved this way or that way, or wasn't moved at all. And so I think that's really, at the end of the day, if it is opening up an RFP, would we get enough folks that are interested in do this, knowing what we know? And then if we don't, then we would have to work potentially with the folks that we've got. So yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as other folks.
Thank you. Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Yeah, hi. I'm a little dubious too about what they can offer us. I'm not so convinced that they were, let's say, tuned into what we might need. To use Commissioner Vento's example of the Gloria Molina and how they created the district back in 10 years ago, that could be seen as packing because they were trying to create a Latino district. And that can also be seen as cracking because they were trying to prevent the Latino district maybe from being two districts. by putting them all in one. I think that kind of problem has been watered down because of the expansion and demography in the last 10 years, that would be harder to do. You know, so just, and when we had the examples used by Mr. Justin Levitt, he kind of gave us that illustrations of how that packing and cracking can occur. I'm not sure if the Maroon Society is geared towards guiding us in, you know, preventing racial polarization when done for the wrong reasons. Okay. Yeah, so I'm dubious. I'm not sure what to play here. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Priscilla Orpinella Segura.
Thank you. I guess my question is, if one of the reasons that perhaps we didn't have as many bidders was an insurance requirement, does the county ever waive these type of insurance requirements? And if not, is there any way that the county can support or we can support maybe a group whom we collectively feel is good enough for this project in obtaining that insurance?
So Commissioner Orpinella Segura, we can also have Holly weigh in on this. My experience is the county will not waive the insurance requirements and the other contractual requirements. An option is we bring in another expert, if this is what you decide to do, and I have my firm put them on our insurance policy, and we add that to the cost. Because our firm does have the errors and omission insurance, and we are contractually in compliance with the county.
And so would that be a sub-consultant for specifically racially polarizing?
For the voter polarization, yeah.
Okay.
I think Holly wants to add.
I was just going to say that it's typically with counties, it's very, very difficult to get the insurance waived.
And the other thing you need to observe is individuals receive this kind of an RFP, and with it comes, you know, all the other county contractual obligations, which would not be a problem for most individuals, but usually they may shy away from bidding because it was a thick RFP. The work scope was probably 4 pages or 5 pages, and then there was a 60-page contractual obligation attached to it that the county wanted added. Our firm complies with it.
So what would, if we were to move in that direction, what would the RFP look like? Would it stipulate that the individual organization would be a sub-consultant of your firm?
So the way this currently works with whoever you select, ARCBridge will be a subcontractor to KH Consulting Group. They have already completed the forms. They had done it when they submitted their proposal. You know, and the forms range from, you know, a range of standard forms of the county. And I would be next asking them to provide the insurance for ARCBridge. And it would normally be the same process. For me to do something for an academician, I would still bring them in as a subcontractor, but I would have the added cost if I'm to put them on my insurance policies. Typically as an independent, they don't need workers' comp, but the errors and omission is the larger cost item, and this is not a large contract. The business insurance is not that much additional cost.
Thank you, Gayla. That answers my questions, and I think if the commission, we decide to re-release the RFP, this does provide an option for those that were unable to submit due to the insurance requirements.
I will point out that I sent an email last week to all of the individuals I'd identified as experts in that area, asking why they did not bid. And I did not hear back from any of them. And one of the questions I asked in that email I sent out was, were the contractual obligations or the insurance a barrier? And I did specifically follow up on one expert who's at Stanford University and, you know, had done this many, many times in his life. And he said, I'm 72, I have a very heavy course load and I'm mentoring and I don't have time to do this. So that was the amount of follow-up I did do, because I thought it would be useful for you all to know if there were others out there who said I need more time. It was the insurance, it was the contractual obligations, and I got no response. I did hear, I mean, we informally had talked to UCLA and they have a conflict of interest, the Latino Institute that Commissioner Vento mentioned, because they had done similar analysis for Supervisor Gloria Molina within the last 10 years. So that makes them conflicted out. So again, similar challenges. I think we have a couple more people in this first round.
Yes, Commissioner Haile Soto.
I'd like to thank the Marine Society for your presentation and have no further comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Zaira Soto.
I think I'm less concerned with, rather I should say that I do think they have a vast level of experience with analyzing voter trends and patterns. And I think just their, you know, even the more recent project they completed, I think one of the staff members mentioned that they were also consulting with the Pew Center, which we know is an expert in voter polarization. So I'm less concerned with that. I think the question around legal, I know they mentioned that they do have attorneys on staff. I'm not quite sure if, you know, what kind of attorneys they have on staff or one attorney, but I'm also wondering, is there a role that Holly plays in advising us once we get to that point, or not?
You know, I believe I had understood them to say that they would be working with the attorney the commission has on staff. I did not understand them to say they had one on staff. And absolutely, my advice and working with the commission is not confined to just compliance with the Brown Act. It extends to complying with the Elections Code, the U.S. Constitution, and the Voting Rights Act. And so, you know, you'll have sort of the team of the demographer, me, and voting polarization analysis, and you all to ensure compliance with that. So yes, I have a role and will be advising you on that.
With that said, I guess, again, I'll repeat that I think they are qualified to do the job that we're asking them to do.
Co-Chair Williams and Co-Chair Maeda, I have a question before we do the second round of comment to see if there's a motion, or maybe there will be a motion at this point. We had an unusual request from the public, and this is a, you know, we've not experienced this before. We're sort of finding our way through this whole process. A person has been watching on YouTube and then signed on because they'd like to make a public comment, and they missed the window for making the public comment. And the person would very much not like to just submit a written comment. Apparently they're unable to submit a written comment because we gave them the option of doing it online. They are a professional geographer. And I'm just wondering if you want to open up the public comment window one more time, now that they've heard the first round, before you do the second round.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
Okay. So
2
Tom,
minutes.
why don't you open up and see, other than Robert Van de Hoek, if there are any other public comments, but we would allow Robert Van de Hoek to make his public comment. 2 minutes would be our standard practice, and I'm just going to do a regular timer.
Of course. So as approved by the co-chairs, we are opening up the public comment for item 4C again. Again, as a reminder for the public who are interested in making a comment, just put in the Q&A section that you are interested in making a public comment, your name, the organization you are affiliated with, and that you would like to make a public comment on this particular item. So we have a public comment from Robert Vanderholt. So Robert, you will be prompted by Zoom to unmute yourself. Okay, so Robert, you are currently actually using an older version of Zoom, so you'll be temporarily promoted to panelist, where you will be able to unmute yourself, and you have 2 minutes to make your public comment. So Robert, you should be able to speak. Robert.
Since there seems to be a technical problem, maybe we go ahead with a second round and see if Robert can figure out how to unmute himself. Robert, do you know how to hit the unmute button? It would be in the lower left-hand corner of your screen or in your picture in the upper right-hand corner. There's a little microphone.
So I believe he was unmuted, so I can try this again. So Robert, can you hear us?
I suggest we go ahead with a second round of questions. And we'll have to send our apologies to Robert because he'll either have to submit them by writing or he'll have to figure out how to unmute himself.
So Commissioner, we will start the second round of comments, starting with Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
The thing I would add is we're hiring a group of experts because we're not experts on the subtleties of doing these analyses and deciding where to draw boundaries and how many different patterns to choose and what correlation constitutes a significant amount of polarization. And it feels to me like Maroon Society could do the work if we held their hand and guided them through it. But what we need is a group that can hold our hands and guide us through it to make sure we've looked at the right options. So I'm disinclined to hire them if we don't feel they are astute enough to do this in a way that covers our behinds for future legal challenges. And the second question I had for Gayla, I think, is whether at one point we had talked about perhaps the firm that got our contract as demographer might be able to bring in someone to do a voter polarization analysis without all the overhead of that person having to write the proposal that might have turned people off to this because it's only $20,000. Do you know if that's a possibility with ARCBridge?
Yes, I can answer that. And the budget was a little bit higher. I think it was $30,000. But I had contacted both NDC and ARCBridge when they were finalists. At the time, NDC said they would subcontract, typically with an academician. ARCBridge said they could do the analysis. Of
well,
course,
that complicates things.
Have that scope, but it would be something we would have to negotiate and add on if you decide to go in that course.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner John Vento.
My recommendation would be to see if we can do another RFP. I'm not trying to push this back, but if we could at least try to get another 1 or 2 people to try to apply, maybe reevaluate the price. I know that sounds, I'm not trying to add more work for everybody, but if we could at least compare another voter polar analysis presentation so that it can give us feel more confident in the choice that we're making, and somebody that has specifically maybe had that expertise in that area. So thank you.
Thank you. Co-Chair Williams.
Okay. My concern, I guess, I have several. One has to do with, first of all, I'm not a demographer, so a lot of this is new to me. I'm picking it up, and I think Commissioner Stetcher was, saying, okay, help me understand this, which means I need to put my confidence in the people that we hire to do this and bring a level of understanding. I know Maroon also applied for the demographer, and we felt they need a little bit more experience. I think they do have a background that they could do it, but I think someone else said, if we have to go to court, I think this group would be the ones that we rely on. I think I got that right. Help me. They have to go and help defend what we're doing in terms of the Voting Rights Act. I wish I could say yay. I think I have questions. I don't know the right questions to ask, but I have additional questions about what they can do, and if they can actually get the work done without us having to hold their hand. What I like is that we do have an option with ARCBridge that they might be able to do the work, and now we're only working with one vendor. The question is that a problem? And I'm wondering too if the size of the contract may have been discouraging for some people. $30,000. I don't know, but so those are some of my concerns. But I'm a little edgy to say let's go with Maroon Society, even though I think they have the experience. They've done a lot of work, but it's just in this particular area, I want someone who's done this before. That's what I'm looking for.
Thank you. Commissioner Wong.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it was my understanding that actually ARCBridge had originally said they might even submit a proposal for the voting polarization analysis RFP, but I think Gayla, they said they didn't have time to do that. So I guess what I would propose would be that since we are going with ARCBridge and they are going to be our consultant, our demographer consultant, I would like to talk to them more about what they think the voter polarization analysis would be, to explore that with them, but also to get for myself I have somewhat of an idea about it, but I want a better understanding of it. And I'm hoping that maybe they could help us understand that. And then we could then decide if we should use them, go with the Maroon Society, or open it up for another round. And I would propose that we try. I don't know how fast that the contracting process could take and how soon we could start talking to ARCBridge, but I would want to, when I said I wanted to think about it more and have more research, that's kind of one of the things that I thought I would like to get more information on. Somebody else to consult to get a better understanding of what we need in terms of a voter polarization analysis.
Thank you. Commissioner Franklin.
If we open it back up again, I'm not sure we will get any responses. It could be the dollar amount. And if ARCBridge stated that they could do it, I have a hesitancy, that's why I didn't vote for them, on their capacity. But, and two, they're out of state. I really would look to feel more comfortable for an organization or an academia that's in the state of California. But neither the last, if we open it back up, I would recommend that we ask the Maroon Society to reapply again. Maybe there were some things that they failed to answer or not understand what we were looking for, because there was a 14-page RFP. But anyway, that's my recommendation. If we choose to open it back up, I would request that the Maroon Society apply again as well. And then whomever applies or responds, that before it comes to the commission, that they are rated, whether they're qualified or not qualified. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Holtzman.
Commissioner Franklin, I appreciate those remarks. I'm in a similar place. You know, I just remember that in addition to me not seeing any scatter plots in their presentation, I didn't even hear any mention of surname matching and how that affects the data, which I think we've all heard about now. I mean, of course, given what the county is doing, whatever firm we're going to hire for this will possibly get all the data on a silver platter from the county, but I think they should understand where it comes from. So, and one more point before I get to where I am now. I think the most important thing for us to do in responding to Commissioner Vento's good point that we need to avoid lawsuits if we can, would actually be to at some point hire a specialized voting rights attorney. No offense, Holly, but if we had one of those on our team to bless this, I think that would be a very good defense against lawsuits. And again, it would make clear we're not actually asking the VPA analyst to do a VRA compliance analysis. So anyway, where I'm at, I think it'd be good to redo the RFP, explore Gayla's suggestion of getting somebody under her umbrella, and give some time for Maroon Society to educate itself and understand more of what we want. I think they can do that. They're pretty good at picking up on things and come back to us with another proposal. I don't think we can, I'm kind of uncomfortable hiring them tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kenny.
Well, as a new commissioner, it's a little disconcerting to hear all this talk of litigation, but I think we're talking about two things. One is clearly everyone wants to comply with the Voting Rights Act, but secondly, wisely, the commission is concerned about litigation risk. And I have some question whether the Maroon Society would even qualify as an expert witness in litigation. And so what I'm kind of thinking along the same lines as Commissioner Holtzman, if we could ask Holly to opine as to what qualifications this person needs to have in order to really be able to qualify as an expert witness in any litigation that comes down the pike. I mean, I think that's one of the things that we're concerned about. And I'm just not sure the Maroon Society has the qualifications.
Thank you. Co-Chair Maeda.
In the hopes of building a consensus, I would like to make a motion to rebid this RFP, consider the insurance implications, and perhaps let folks know that that's it's a possibility to come within Gayla's firm's umbrella. But also to the point of several of you, to encourage the Maroon Society to stay in the game. I personally, I would have just felt more comfortable if I had at least a couple of bids to compare. Maybe these are pretty much what we get, and then I'd feel more comfortable because I think they do have the background and smarts to do it. But I'm just slightly uncomfortable right now, so that's what I would propose. That's my motion.
Thank you. Commissioner Mendoza.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? And then there's discussion of the motion, but we haven't finished the whole round, Co-Chair Maeda. So are you happy to hold that motion? Go ahead.
Yes.
Sorry, Commissioner Mendoza.
Thank you. I'm now not surprised that we only got one proposal, one bid, given that the RFP, excuse me, had a predetermined amount for, I didn't read the scope, I must say, but $30,000, maybe it was viewed as paltry. I don't know. Perhaps with insurance limits for E&O that were exorbitant. So maybe we should look at that a little bit more closely. But probably more importantly, and several people have touched on it, the last being Commissioner Kinney. So I want to ask the question, and depending upon the answer, I'm going to state that I'm very concerned or not. Commissioner Vento, did you ask the question if any of the Maroon Society had testified as an expert witness? What was the question exactly?
Yes, that was the specific question I asked them, and no, they have not. So they are not recognized as expert witnesses in this field.
So no, can you read it to what the exact, please?
Yeah, let me pull it up. Where is it? Hold on. Have you ever been called as a witness to testify regarding Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965? Please describe what your role was and how those proceedings went.
Okay, so they may or may not be subject matter experts in this very specific field. They haven't been called, they haven't testified. So yes, I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Morales.
Yeah, I think all of our concerns are very valid. And so I think, the practical thing to do is really to open this up. Again, with the caveat, like maybe folks need to do a little more research in terms of what it is that they're applying for. Yeah, so. Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Obregon.
I think we should open it up again. I don't think they were clear on what they were trying to help us do. Those three prongs was the, things that they should have maybe stuck to. And they just seemed to bring them up as points, but they didn't really, because that's really, I think, the intent of what we should be focused on is trying to stick to those three prongs. Those seem really common sense. So, we need to relook at this and see what choice we have, if we have any later. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Orpanela Segura.
I am open to releasing the RFP again and see what we get in return and then move forward from there.
Thank you. Commissioner Hyla Soto.
Yes, I'd like to thank again the Maroon Society for making their presentation. I guess I was trying to look back at how we got to the situation. So I think looking back at the minutes back in March 10th, I think when the decision was made, I think initially the scope of work was going to be grouped together with the demographer. And then I think the discussion was to maybe look for a more specialized group, but then because of insurance requirements and everything else, I think we're kind of stuck. Again, we have high standards for both insurance requirements as well as conflict of interest. So I think it's just going to continue maybe putting us in these tough positions where we're getting maybe not as many people to bid or submit proposals because we've just kind of made it a little bit more difficult for them. But I feel, kind of looking back at previous discussions, I feel like the Maroon Society can do the work, but there is just it just makes it hard to compare when only one bid was submitted, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sara Soto.
Yeah, I just sort of second what Commissioner Hyla Soto just stated, and just thank you for the really thoughtful discussion here. No more comments.
Thank you. So co-chairs, that wraps up the second round of comments. We were able to get Robert connected through their phone. If it's allowed, we can have Robert speak for their 2 minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
So Robert Vanderhoek, you're going to be prompted by Zoom to unmute yourself on your phone. To unmute yourself on your phone, you just need to press *6, *6, and once you unmute yourself and begin speaking, your 2 minutes will begin.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tiley. I did find the *6. My name is Robert Vanderhoek, and I'm very appreciative to get to speak and want to say a kind word about all of you volunteering and as commissioners. I can see that you're all sincere and caring and trying to do good for us as voters and our society in LA County. I am a professional geographer, trained at Cal State Northridge with bachelor's and graduate work in geography and another degree in environmental biology. I've had all the advanced map interpretation classes, and I don't need to ramble on about it. It's kind of a professional student too, and for many years at Cal State Northridge. So will you let me know when I have 15 seconds left, so I can make a brief little conclusion? Okay, thank you. And a reminder at 15 seconds, please. We have a complex county, 2 million people per supervisorial district, 8 million to 10 million people in our county, and all kinds of diversity. That's really beautiful, and 100+ languages. I worked for LA County Parks for 23 years as a park supervisor in the different supervisorial districts, each of the 5. I think that, to be fair, we need to think about the bids and the proposals giving some like practice maps for you to look at. As an example, a map that has all 5 supervisory districts having a part of the LA County coast, all having part of the desert. Not really focused on mountains, because very few people live in the Santa Monica Mountains and San Gabriel Mountains because it's mostly public land, and in the valleys. 15 seconds left? Or was that my 2 minutes?
That was your 2 minutes.
May I request 15 seconds for closing? Or not?
It is up to the
I
coach.
think. Pardon me?
It's up to the coaches. Normally it would be 2 minutes.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. So cherry stems are no good. Maybe you don't know what those are, but I have a feeling you've heard of that. I was wondering, do you have the option to even suggest not having districts and all the voters voting for all 5 supervisors, and the cost savings and doing cost benefit analysis? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Time is up. And to answer that question, that would have to go to the vote of the entire to the voters of Los Angeles County. That is not within the scope to change 5 districts or Board of Supervisors at large. We are committed to drawing 5 districts. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you for your patience working through the technical difficulties. So there are currently no more public comments, so I think it's good for us to officially close the public comments again on this agenda item.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We do have a motion on.
Let me repeat the motion. The motion was made by Co-Chair Maeda to rebid and to reconsider the insurance requirements for some other arrangement through my firm, Cage Consulting Group, and to ask Maroon Society to resubmit their bid.
Seconded.
Chair Maeda, does that capture what you said?
Yes, it does.
And we have a second by Mendoza. Back to Co-Chair Williams.
Okay, are there any comments on the motion that's on the floor?
We have a hand for Commissioner Stetcher.
Okay.
Thanks. Are we going to include the possibility that ARCBridge could bring in a demographer to do this analysis under their umbrella?
I guess my view is they could bid on that.
Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Kenny.
Are we going to revise the proposal so that they have to specify their expertise in doing voter polarization analysis?
We can certainly have the working group look at the specifications before we send it out again. The original RFP did ask for those specifications, though, the relevant experience and project descriptions.
Any other questions? Ty?
I don't see any other hands from any other commissioner.
Okay, can we repeat the motion and then we'll do we'll do a roll call.
The motion would be to rebid the RFP, and I gather that includes looking at the RFP itself to see if any modifications are needed. Reconsider the insurance requirements to come under Cage Consulting Group, ask the Maroon Society to rebid, and within that we would be including any other firms, including ARCBridge. But that's not part of the motion, that's their decision if they want to rebid.
Okay, so can we move ahead with the roll call, Ty?
Of course. So commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. I will now take roll call. Commissioner John Venta.
Yes.
Co-Chair Carolyn Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Yes.
Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Yes.
Commissioner David Holtzman.
Yes.
Commissioner Mary Kenny.
Yes.
Co-Chair Daniel Maeda.
Aye.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Aye.
Commissioner Apolonio Morales.
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Yes.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura.
Yes.
Commissioner Haile Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Saida Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you.
And if I may, on that, I would suggest that we also change the timeline, because in many ways, you know, when Commissioner Sridharan was here, we thought we wanted to get it done by the end of July. Now that you probably won't be getting the software to do the analysis till late July and August, I would suggest you might entertain having this analysis done by the end of September to give them a little bit more time. And by then you'll have the census data that could be overlaid. And you'd still receive the analysis while you're still having on maps before you draw maps.
Okay. Can you bring that to our next meeting for us to just kind of have another chance to look at it?
Sure, sure.
All right, great. I guess before we move on, I just want to thank the commissioners for being thoughtful, considerate, and really having opinions and being careful about what we do as a commission, because we do represent the citizens of LA County. And so appreciate your consideration and your thoughts and comments as we consider these things. I like that we're moving ahead. We've made a decision. We are moving ahead on a demographer, and we actually making progress toward the voter polarization analysis. So thank you. And with that, I will hand it over to Co-Chair Maeda.
As far as I know, there's nothing else on the agenda. So we will stand adjourned until next Wednesday when we have our next regular meeting. And we're going to have an exciting panel by the Education Committee working group. Thank you very much, everybody.
All right,
Have a good
thank
evening.
you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Good night, everyone.